Hey guys, welcome back to my field guide to the Cycloverse, and today we're going to be discussing projective tests. The first type of projective test we're going to go over, just because it really gets at the heart of what a projective test is the Rorschach ink blot test, where ink is dropped onto a piece of paper, and then that paper is folded, and it creates an abstract image. And then this image is presented to a subject and is asked what they see. Now, anything that they see in this image is a product of pure fantasy. There's not supposed to be any meaningful image presented in the first place, since it's just ink dropped and smeared on a piece of folded paper. And so whatever is observed or experienced by the subject, we know is a product of their unconscious mind. And so through these images, we are offered a window into the subject's unconscious mind. You are offered a window into your own unconscious mind. And so just take a deep look into these and withdraw as many things as you can from them. And then reflect on what these things say about you. Reflect on what they remind you of, and things of that sort. The second type of test that we're going to talk about is the word association test. In the word association test, a simple phrase or a single word is presented to a subject, and then just like in the ink blot test, the subject is to have a response. They are supposed to recognize something in this word or phrase. And so, just as with the ink blot test, only now using words instead of images, look into each one of these words and reflect on what comes to mind immediately. Is it a memory? Is it a trauma? Is it a good memory? Does it remind you of something that you want to do? Does it remind you of a struggle that you're facing? Of something that you've just maybe been thinking about? It's all about recognition and then reflection. And then there's also the sentence completion test, which is very similar to the word association test, only instead of giving a phrase that the subject will spontaneously respond to, the subject is given a incomplete sentence, and then they are supposed to complete it. So for instance, I am feeling blank. Many different people will give many different answers to this question, but no matter what their answer is, it is likely reflective of their inner state. And then you go through the process of recognizing whatever your unique sentence completion is, and then reflecting on what that says about you, how it could say something about you that you maybe don't like or didn't know. Another projective test is the thematic apprehension test, where instead of an abstract image being presented to the subject, a situation, an image of concrete objects is presented. However, these objects have an ambiguous relationship, and it is up to the subject to formulate the narrative or the meaning of the image. And so again, it's a matter of recognition and reflection. Did this man kill this woman and now he's crying? Or did he just sleep with her and now he's wiping his brow? And whatever you did see, what does that say about you? Is this boy frustrated or is he curious? Is this man struggling, trying to climb up a rope to escape some trouble? Or does he perhaps have a slight smile and he's simply at the gym? Who is this man angry at? Is this some kind of a pastor blessing a man on his deathbed? Or is he a murderer about to suffocate him in his sleep? So on and so forth. Recognize what it is that your psyche spontaneously or otherwise automatically formulates, and then reflect. Now we get to tarot. Tarot works almost exactly like the thematic apprehension test, where an image with a series of symbols is presented to the subject, and they are to recognize meaning in it, recognize some sort of a narrative that they can relate to, that you can relate to. And then, after the fact, you can reflect on what this means about you. What does it say about your flaws, about your future, about your past? The same function is at play in astrology. We have this primordial Rorschach test, the starry night sky. an abstract image made up of nothing more than shimmering dots. However, man's psyche recognizes images in it nonetheless, which we have gone on to call constellations. This is likely the most ancient projective test that man completed. And so the images found here are reflective of the most archaic elements of our psyche. We can also see how this relates to the Jungian idea of ions. Quite simply put, first constellation of Aries, the time in which this ion played out over this 2,000-year period, about 2000 BC to 0 AD, we can make very easy connections between the energy of what we associate with Aries, the ram, the god of war, and what was essentially the Bronze Age, the time of the Romans, the time of the Greeks, of the Egyptians, of Babylon, so on and so forth. And then we get to 0 AD to essentially now, under this constellation of Pisces. And so again, we make associations and connections between the idea of the two fish of Pisces in the past 2,000 years. Perhaps these two fish represent some kind of duality. If anything has marked the past 2,000 years of history, it's Christianity. And so perhaps these two fish could be conflated with Christ and Antichrist. And so what does it mean that the first fish is nearly vertical while the second fish has a positive slope that is increasing over time? Perhaps this first fish was the birth of Christ and the emergence of Christianity, and the second fish is the Antichrist and how it's slowly been creeping into our collective consciousness. And then we have our turning point where we are situated right now, and how the next approximate 2,000 years are going to be marked under Aquarius, the water bearer, the man we can associate with man as such, and that now, instead of being captivated or possessed by one fish or the other, we can reconcile them and contain them both in one vessel that we control. And then we get to two more very ancient projective tests with hepatoscopy and auricle bones. Hepatoscopy being the practice in which you basically disembowel a lamb or some other sheep of that sort and throw their guts in a pile and look into it. Very similar to a Rorschach test, just a bunch of ink blots, just a bunch of bloody intestines. And yet meaning can still be withdrawn because man possesses an unconscious mind that communicates through projection. Or at least the messages can be understood through withdrawing projection by reflection. And then there are auricle bones, where a turtle shell with engraved symbols on it is cooked in a way so that it starts to crack. And then these cracks, as they go through these symbols, are interpreted. There's a recognition of some kind of meaning, which again is nothing more than a projection that is to be withdrawn so that we can learn, understand ourselves, and inevitably become who we really are by this understanding. And the last one I wanted to go over is palm reading, where again, it's a projective test, but instead of the dots in the sky or the ink on the paper or the images on the tarot, we're working with lines on the hand. And that's about all I wanted to go over with projective tests. I hope you guys were able to learn something from this, or at very least found it interesting. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.